Dexter Resurrection, episode 5, titled Murder Horny. Now, this episode I really enjoyed. I mean, I'm not as crazy with the Harrison stuff. And it could just because, like, let's be honest, the Harrison stuff in New Blood wasn't the most interesting stuff in New Blood. So it could just be that baggage with New Blood that is getting attached to Resurrection. What I find the most interesting about Resurrection is the whole gentleman serial killer thing, which apparently is inspired by a real thing. Like, there's apparently some point in, like, I don't know when, but there was a pig farm. There was the pig farm that, like, BTK was a part of, and so forth and so forth. That was essentially a gentleman's club for serial killers. And they get this hang around and talk about all the stuff, and be as maybe talk as friendly as they want and all sickened as they want, but it was basically what it was. It was like a gentleman's club for serial killers. It was a real thing, and so clearly they got inspired by that and might get a more hyper version of that for Resurrection, and so. But we met all these characters, and I find them more interesting. I find them more interesting characters. I found, even though we got a little bit of that in last week with, was a Lobel, Neil Patrick Harris's character before Dexter, killed that character off, and now this week with learning more about Maya. For me, I find these characters interesting. I find Charlie an interesting character, Uber Firm's character. I find Peter Dinklage's character very interesting, and how his upbringing and why he's fascinated with serial killers in like a fanboy level. Like, look, it's one thing to listen to like true crime podcasters, but it's another thing to have a private museum full of their collectibles. Like, it's one thing to have that. So it's quite interesting to, I find that his character interesting. It's just Harrison, like, look, I get it. He got into, it's true, he has a hero complex, that is true. But he also is trying his hardest not to be his dad, and he's in a situation where he had to be his dad for a little bit, and it's ticking him, it's just driving him insane, and it kind of shows in the opening scene that how different they are, and my guess the idea is it's the idea of like Reed's still there, Harrison's Reed's kid as well. And also Dexter. So there's that, I think, the devil and the angel and the devil thing going on, where maybe he has these dark feelings, but he equates those feelings. He doesn't Dexter can just kill people and kind of like, oh yeah, that happened, and moved on. Meanwhile, he doesn't. Harrison feels responsible. He feels the weight of ending someone's life, because he shot his dad, and that haunted him. He murdered the sexual predator, and that haunted him. But as much as I enjoyed like the Dexter and Harrison's dynamic in this, it's just like it's the New York cops. Like, the New York cops in this are the least the most uninteresting characters of the show, because they're so woodpan. I mean, definitely the main one, like the female detective, who's so low key and so like I get once again I remember saying this when I was talking about episodes 1 and 2, that they wanted to go very Sherlock Holmes with this character. Very like, she's all about the job. She's all about the job. She listens to Bee Gees while she thinks and thinks about things that other cops don't think about, and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, like, I wouldn't be shocked that we find out her name is Holmes, and it's, oh fuck, they put Sherlock Holmes and Dexter. Okay, that's funny. But that's why, at this point, thinking it, right? And that's what, I get they were trying to go there. But it's just, I just find her, anytime that the New York cops are on screen, I just like, can we go to the next scene? Even if it's very important. Because I just don't find those characters as engaging as the rest of the show. Now, the Dexter storyline is all about Maya. Now, Maya, played by Kristen Wiig, we find out last week that her whole stick is she is known as the Lady Vengeance. That she's kind of like Dexter, but while Dexter hunts and kills killers, she hunts down sexual predators, rapists and those type of people. And on paper, it sounded like, okay, and from last week's episode, it did felt like, okay, these characters are going to have, it feels like this is Lila 3.0 or Hannah 2.0, the new Bonnie to Dexter's Clyde, where it's like, hey, I know who you are, you the love interest who can accept Dexter who he is, and he can show his dark passenger to them, and it won't be scary, or they won't back away, or he can be his true self, and it felt like it was on that path. And even the funny thing about Dexter thinking of some weird twisted Batman or Robin situation going on, where like Beta the Butcher, Lady of Vengeance, swooping down, killing the scum of society. He kills killers. She kills rapists. We're all happy and going. Everything's good for society. That's what Dexter's mindset is, and it's. And I was like, what? For the context of the show, it sounds great, and it also sounds like a good, like, messed up happy ending maybe for the character. Maybe maybe this is how you give this character a happy ending, which is, Dexter's, finds the woman who fully understands him, and that's what your head's thinking. But the moment she mentions that, she just starts hunting down guys, and it doesn't matter if they have, it doesn't matter if they're sexual predators or not. That's when you go, okay, Dex, time to get the blood slides. Okay, Dex, where's the plastic? Where's the table? Where's the blood slides? Because that ain't a code. That is, she had the code, and then she lost interest in said code. Because she just says, I like killing. I like it, I just like doing the kill. And I felt so bad for the guy that she picked up. Because you can tell, like, Mike said it was like a Tinder date or something on those lines. And you can tell, like, this guy that she's trying to be his next victim, before Dexter, calls the police on him. Calls the police on them. On her. You can tell this guy is an innocent soul. Like, he might, like, you can tell he has never been the asshole in the bar. You can tell that he, understands what no means. You can understand, like, he feels like he's a little bit social awkward, he's a little bit shy, he's uncomfortable with his own skin, and he's probably thinking he's out of his depth because some beautiful woman is interested in him. So your head's thinking, what's happened? Like, you feel bad for this guy. This is not, you can tell this guy has never, ever even done an oopsie daisy. I went the wound wall. He's probably has never done that. He's probably also a big fan of, like, ladies, you asked me out versus the other way around. Like, you tell, and you're thinking, Maya, this is the guy that you want to bash a wine bottle with. This is this is the guy that you want to do some fucked up BDSM torture thing. And my guess, the idea is that because it's in some weird BDSM setup, that if, the whole way hears him screaming and getting tortured, it's a people might easily think, oh, okay, two people are having sex having sex, and they're both good in bed or something. That's what I think. It's a fucked up version of Zayna on the top. that's what my brain went to. Because also I'm thinking, if someone's screaming and getting tortured, you would think people would want to would immediately pick it up that, hey, someone's getting murdered here. Get the killer. Call the police. But in reality, I'm thinking it is people probably just saying, if the guy is screaming, that just means like that might just be good. Talk about murder horny. Talk about that. And all that kind of stuff. But yeah, I think, and of course we got little bits and pieces and stuff like that, finding out a little bit more about Charlie, Uma Thurman's character. It's interesting, like, she's a teacher, she also is a lawyer, she apparently went to Harvard, so it could be one of those things where, like, hey, you're mainly this, but you probably had to do this to get some extra credits. It could be that easily thing. Or she just is able to be very, very, I'm trying to find the right word, very capable of her own, just is a jack of many trades, a lot of tools in her toolbox, that type of thing. Of course, a lot of things to talk about is speculation. I think what's going to happen, because from the preview for next week, Angel is going to go to the police, going to say, hey, I don't think, Lane Vengeance is the bait, didn't kill the guy that you're looking, the killer who got killed in the hotel. It's this guy, Dexter Morgan, who's the Bayhunter Butcher, who I believe is the Bayhunter Butcher. This is the guy you need to hunt down. And what is happening is, I think the word's going to come out that the Bayhunter Butcher is in New York, and everyone's on speed, everyone's on stare, and everybody can, but they're not going to pinpoint Dexter. They just know he's in there. That he's out there in New York, but they don't know what he looks like. Clearly, was it Larry? Larry's going to have his fanboy moment, because if the Bayhunter Butcher is in New York, that's for him is like meeting Elvis or something. That's if he's a massive fan of the serial killers, that's like Maine Bundy or something like that. But as I said last week, the Bayhunter Butcher is kind of the John Wick. He's the boogeyman. He's the Baba Yaga of serial killers, because he hunts down his own kind. So it's a whole situation going on. But yeah, I think that's what's going to happen. That's what I think is going to happen. Where Dexter is just going to act normal life. Things, everything's going to be okie dokie. But the word is going to come out that the Bayhunter Butcher is in New York. And I think the moment they find, but the New York Police Department and Batista is going to know that we need to hunt down Dexter, which is hard to do because Dexter's quite smart. He watches his tracks very, very carefully. So, anyway, comment below, let me know your thoughts. Big one to talk about, a lot to talk about in this one, but comment below your thoughts of this episode.